You need some potent decks in a pinch, maybe a little power on a penny? Probably. Today I've got 4 extremely powerful commanders and decks, all for under $50 a piece, along with upgrade packages for each deck, also under $50. If you've ever wanted to dip your toe into the content creation water, or maybe you don't want to be a content creator and you've had some ideas you've wanted to turn into video form and have some people see, we're going to be having you guys, the Nyx Lotus community, submit 3 to 5 minute videos talking about maybe one of your favorite decks, a card, a piece of tech, obscure cards, artwork, anything Magic. Make a 3 to 5 minute video, email it to this email right here, and we will turn a series out of showing off your guys' creations. Also, with the emails, send whatever you'd like to put at the bottom of the screen while it's playing so we can shout you out in some way. An opportunity for 12,000 and rising subscribers and people to see your ideas. So if you're interested in that, check that out. Without further ado, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let's jump into 4 powerful decks for under $50. Deck number 1 is based around the Necroblossom. The Necroblossom is an extremely potent commander that costs 1, a white, a black, and a green for a 2/7. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under our control, we get a 0/1 green plant. If we control 7 lands with different names, we get a 2/2 zombie. Oh, the best part though? All your lands in your graveyard have dredge too. And it's just as busted as it sounds. If you're not familiar with dredge, if a card with dredge is in your graveyard and you were to draw a card, you can instead not draw that card, put the card with dredge back into your hand, and then mill a number of cards equal to the dredge numbers. So with Necrobloom, if we can get a land in the graveyard, every time we draw a card, we can return that land to our hand and mill 2 cards, which is incredibly good at 1, putting a ton of lands into play and making sure we hit land drops, but also 2, filling up our graveyard, which we will also utilize. So the first thing I want to talk about is some land payoffs in the deck. Obviously, we're going to have guaranteed land drops most of our turns because a ton of our land base are sack lands. Therefore, we can guaranteed dredge those back into our hand, play them the next turn, sack them, dredge them, play them, keep repeating that. So stuff like Maha Bredegard Protector is extremely good, being 2 a green and 2 white for a 2/3. Other creatures we control get +1/+1, and whenever a land comes into play under our control, we get a 1/1 white human token. So again, doing the exact same thing our commander's doing while providing a Anthem. That's pretty great. Rampaging Balos, being a 6-drop that provides us with a 4/4 beast every time a land hits play, is also pretty fantastic. Rumbleweed acts as a Craterhoof Behemoth style effect, but it costs 1 less for each land in our graveyard, so if we can time the crack lands, maybe not dredge them out, we can get this guy to cost really cheap, buff up all of our tokens, give him trample, end a game that way. Turntimber Sower turns lands going to our graveyard into 0/1s, which pairs really nicely with Necrobloom. Of course, the deck runs Titania to turn lands going to grave into 5/3s, Aftermath Analyst to mill ourselves, as well as crack itself to return a large amount of lands into play all at once, and Avenger of Zendikar being a huge late game bomb in this deck for 7 mana, creating a 0/1 for each land we control, and then whenever a land ETB is on our side, give a 1/1 counter to all of our plants. And wouldn't you know it, Necrobloom makes plants? Awesome. So to benefit off all those tokens hitting play, or leaving play, we run Nadir's Nightblade, Corpse Knight, Mirkwood Bats, and LS Ilkor, which all will ping for those tokens either ETBing or leaving battlefield. So seeing how the deck's going to fill our graveyard with lands, those lands are going to dredge. We can hit stuff like Avenger of Zendikar, Rampaging Baloth. We also run a small recursion package, so if we accidentally dredge into any of these bigger creatures, we can get them back for much cheaper. Quest for the Necropolis is one that I've never heard of, but I really like it in this deck a ton. For 1 black, we get an enchantment that gets a quest counter whenever a land ETB is on our side, which in this deck, super easy to do. We can also pay 5 and a black to recur a creature directly into play. It costs 1 less to activate for each quest counter. This can very easily, especially with like Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse, be a 2-drop recursion spell, and if we're accidentally milling any of those big creatures, this could be very useful. The deck also runs Dread Return because for 4 mana we can recur something, and again, that's a pretty good value for some of these bigger creatures in the deck. It's also got Flashback for sacking 3 creatures, and since lands are creating tokens off our commander, this is pretty much Flashback for free. And again, recurring these useful, not even just the big ones, some of the more techie creatures in the deck could be very useful. And then along the same lines of Dread Return, we've got Victimize, being a 2 and a black, sack a creature to return 2 creatures into play tapped. Again, we're making tons of tokens. This is easily going to be a sack a 0/1 plant to get 2 huge bodies into play for 3 mana. As far as lands are concerned, we've got Dakmor Salvage because land with built-in dredge 3, kinda gotta run it in here. Terramorphic Expanse, Evolving Wilds, as they both are lands that you can put into graveyard by sacking to get a basic. The Dredge can trigger, return it to hand, play it again, get another basic. That's 2 land hits every turn. It's gonna trigger a lot of landfall. We've also got the cycling lands like Drifting Meadow or Polluted Mire that we can just cycle out of hand if we don't need, put them in grave, dredge away, draw the card with the cycle. Tons of value there. And Echoing Deep, which can copy all of the above. Here's a look at the deck's card draw, a look at the deck's mana ramp, the deck's removal, and the deck's board interaction. And with that, let's move on to the $50 upgrade for this list if you're interested in it. As far as the $50 upgrade for this list is concerned, we've only got 4 cards, but they are absolute powerhouses. We've got Springheart and Tuco being a 1 and a green 1/1 that you can bestow to give +1/+1, and whenever a land enters and it's not bestowed, you get a 1/1. Whenever a land enters and it is bestowed, you can pay 1 and a green to make a token of the thing it is bestowed to. Obvious win condition, especially in a landfall deck, even just as a 2-drop that makes 1/1s. Crazy interactions in this deck. Pick it up. Dryad of Elysian Grove is another fantastic pickup, allowing us to drop an additional land, and when you're running Terramorphic Expanses and Evolving Wilds, that can be upwards of 4 land hits a turn, and it also turns all of our basics into every land type. Yeah, pretty good. Never have to worry about which land types your lands are again. Playing extra lands, obviously run this in the deck. Elesh Norn, Mother of Machines, doubling all of our ETB triggers. Yes, that includes landfall. Absolutely disgusting. Turning off all your opponent's ETB triggers. Little ruthless, but that's all right with us. And then finally, obviously, Life from the Loam. 1 and a green sorcery, return a land from your graveyard to your hand. Dredge, what is it, 3? Dredge 3. Yeah, we've explained Dredge. This is clearly insane in this deck. Highly recommend all 4 of these. With that, let's move on to deck number 2. Deck number 2 is based around Kotis the Fang Keeper. He is 1, a black, a green, and a blue for a 2/1 indestructible. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, exile that many cards off the top of that player's deck. Then you may cast any spells that cost less than the amount of damage you dealt. Yeah, that's any amount. Busted. Right off the command zone. Busted. Oh, what are we doing? We're dropping Kotis as quick as we humanly possibly can, and we are protecting the shit out of him. We are buffing the shit out of him, and we are swinging for a ton of combat to get the shit out of our opponent's cards. As far as buffs are concerned, we've got stuff like Hero's Blade being a 2-drop equipment that can immediately equip to legendary creatures and give it a +3/+2, turning our commander into a 5/3. Sure, that seems pretty good with Indestructible and milling the top 5, playing any amount of stuff that costs 5 or less. 1 equipment already, you can see how busted it is. There's also buff cards with built-in protection like Snakeskin's Veil, which will give a 1/1 counter to Kotis, more cards off top, while also giving him hexproof. Fantastic, we love that. You feel like Kotis triggering twice? Throw a Fire Shrieker on it and give it double strike. That seems fantastic. You feel like Kotis triggering bigger? Throw a Colossification on it and make him a 10/10. You want your removal to buff Kotis? Ruinous Intrusion. Blow up an artifact or enchantment and put a 1/1 counter for the mana cost of that artifact and enchantment on a creature we control. Oh, yes. You want to draw cards and buff Kotis? How about Hunter's Prowess? Give him +3/+3 and we draw cards when he does combat damage. Plus exile. Sorry. You want Evasion and buff Kotis? Distortion Strike. Give him a +1/+0, make him unblockable. There's options, baby. There's options, baby. That did not work how I wanted. I mean, shit, the deck runs the 13th Doctor, because whenever you're casting anything from anywhere other than your hand, this deck, tons of stuff from anywhere other than our hand, we get to put a 1/1 counter on something. A la, every time we cast something from exile for free from an opponent, from Kotis, we make Kotis bigger. Oh my gosh. There's tons of these in here. Dragonfire Blade, give him protection from monocolor stuff and +2/+2. Yes! The Ring of cycle that like benefit you for being a certain color creature, the one that like regenerates, the one that gives hexproof, the one that like does trample. Honestly, in this deck, pick your flavor of buff. If you're on a budget, check out the deck list down below on Moxfield and pick up this specific flavor of buff. And as we brought in the buff section, giving this commander evasion is incredibly important because dealing combat damage is the whole kit and caboodle here. So, key to the city, discard a card to make a creature unblockable, and then when you untap it, you can pay to replace that card you discarded? Sure. Aqueous Form? A 1-drop enchantment aura that gives unblockable? Yeah, I think I'll take that actually. Even Rancor, giving a 2/0 and trample, is gonna make most people just not even want to block in the first place because it's like, he's gonna do the damage anyway. I'll just take the 5. Nutty Commander, and what is so good about this commander is the only thing we care about is playing the commander, stealing tons of shit from the opponent and protecting the ever-living shit out of this commander, okay? So a good section to jump into would probably be the protection. One of my favorite protection spells of all time, Keep Safe, 1 in a blue, counter a spell that targets a permanent you control, draw a card. It's a cantrip counter spell. I love that. I understand this is pretty much the same thing as giving a creature hexproof. Just let me have this, okay? Let me have this one. We've got Negate to stop instants and sorceries. We've got Swiftfoot Boots to give hexproof. We've got Blossoming Defense. The aforementioned Snakeskin Veil and Ring Cycle can also provide protection and buffs. Tons of ways to protect this commander, because as we said, why do we need creatures when we're stealing the creature deck's creatures? Why do we need removal when we're stealing the Spellslinger decks? Removal. Why do we need board wipes when we're stealing the control deck's board wipes? We don't. We just need to play our commander, protect the crap out of it, buff the crap out of it, smack your face, and it's your fault for running such good cards. An absolute nutter deck, okay? The only 2 lands I really want to talk about outside of just the 38 that we run in the deck are Access Tunnel and Secret Passage, both of which can be utilized to make Kotis unblockable. What I really like about Access Tunnel, which is kind of cool, is you can activate it, target Kotis, and then buff it, because at the time you targeted Kotis, he was a 3 or less power creature, but at the time after you swing with Kotis, he's bigger. The unblockable still applies. Both those lands are fantastic in this deck. Outside of that, here's a look at the whole land base. Here's a look at the mana ramp. Here's a look at the card draw, as well as the deck's removal, plus the deck's board interaction. As with all the decks on this list, this deck comes in at under $50 on Card Kingdom. And if you're interested in building it, here is a $50 or under upgrade that I could suggest for this list. Up first, we got Brotherhood's Regalia, which is an insane equipment giving unblockable, ward 2, low equipment cost. Really don't need to say much else. Protection and evasion on this commander is absolutely phenomenal. Moving on, we've got Power Fist being another equipment that will give 1/1 counters equal to the damage dealt from a creature. So in this deck, it pretty much just doubles Kotis's power every time he deals combat damage, which doubles the amount of cards we can exile and cast next turn, almost turning this into a pseudo mill list when this is on Kotis, which is nuts. Ancient Cellar Spawn is actually a really interesting one that I've never thought about using in this way. Normally, I think about using this card when we can run like cost reducers. Like if we're in an artifact deck that's running Cloud Key, I'd be like, yeah, Cellar Spawn can turn all of our artifacts into pings. But if you're in a deck that's casting spells for free, you're doing the spell's mana cost as damage with the Cellar Spawn. So in Kotis, all the spells we're casting from exile from opponents for free are also damaging opponents for a lot. And then finally, Mnemonic Betrayal is another banger card that I think definitely fits the theme of this deck. For 1 a blue and a black, you can exile your opponent's graveyard, and you can use mana as though it were any color, and you can cast spells from that graveyard. So nothing makes it through the Kotis web of deception and theft. We are going to be taking it, even if it's in your graveyard. All these absolute banger cards. Again, this upgrade kit comes in at under $50, so if you want to upgrade the deck, feel free. Again, the upgrade kit is down below in the deck list. If you want to scroll down to the Considering tab, that is the upgrade list. And with that, let's move on to deck number 3. Okay, deck number 3, I have to be a little honest here. I cheated a little bit, just a little bit, okay? The commander of this deck is Dihada. It says on Moxfield for some reason she's $30, okay? That didn't seem right. And when I went to Card Kingdom, you can buy her for $15. So that's what we're marking her down as, okay? So we're gonna shave $15 off that price you're gonna see on this Moxfield list, because you can pick up a Dihada for 15 bucks, okay? So shave 10, 15 bucks off the price you see on Moxfield and accept it, okay? It is insane that I even made this deck work. This deserves a Patreon or YouTube membership. If anything else doesn't, this does. This was so little wiggle room to work to make a deck powerful when the commander costed this much. For under 50, we made it work, dude. This is a banger Reanimator list, and not only is it banger, not only is it powerful, it is also incredibly unique compared to a lot of other Dihada lists. The budget aspect of it kind of forced us to go a very unique way with this, that's filling like all the roles you guys like. So if you want a fucking cool, powerful, unique deck, this might be the deck for you. So if you don't know what Dihada does, she's 1 a red, a white, and a black for a 5 loyalty planeswalker. She can be your commander. Her +2 is up to 1 target legendary creature gains vigilance, lifelink, and indestructible until end of turn. Her -3 is mill 4 cards, return any number of legendary cards from among those milled cards to your hand, and then create a treasure token for each card milled this way. And then her -11 is gain control of all non-land permanents until end of turn, and they gain haste. That's a pretty good built-in. So let me explain why this is different than other Dahada decks, okay? Other Dahada decks, you're going for some cool legendary shit, okay? You're milling legendaries, you're putting them directly into your hand. The stuff that's not legendary gives you treasure, so now you have mana to cast those big scary legendaries. It's all fun, but when you're on a $50 budget and you're still trying to be strong as shit, there's only one real way to go with this, and that is not giving a single shit about legendaries, okay? Because if we mill 4 cards and create 4 treasure tokens, guess what that does? Fills the crap out of our graveyard and makes all of the shitty 5-drop reanimation spells pretty much 1 mana spells now. This card's extraordinarily cheap for how hard of a win con it is in this deck. For 4 and a red, how big is this thing? A 4/2 with Undying. Whenever a creature ETBs, if it's from our graveyard, it does damage equal to its mana cost to an opponent. Let me make sure I'm reading that right. No, to any target. This card's insane in this deck. You're just like, Mill, sure, I'll reanimate this 8-drop. 8 to your dome. Mill, y'all hit a 9-drop. 9 to your dome. I don't have to do the joke 3 times. You understand it. The deck runs Zatalpa, being an 8-drop, 5/8 flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, indestructible on a budget. Why the hell not on that bad boy? Luminant Primordial to exile a creature from everyone's board while also being a 4/7. Sir Conrad pinging for milling creatures, creatures leaving grave. Tons of different stuff, creatures dying. In this deck, absolutely insane. Ashen Rider, being a giant 5/5 flying that will exile something when it ETBs or dies. I don't remember it doing that. I remember it doing it on ETB when I used to run it into Neb. It does it on death. And then Sire of Insanity is sitting at like 50 cents now. Everyone discards their hand at the beginning of the end step. Okay. I'm gonna have to say, in a reanimator deck, we're okay with that. So how are we reanimating these creatures on a budget is probably your biggest question, because a lot of reanimation stuff, ding, 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 is extremely expensive to run. I totally understand. Let me just speed round it to you. I'm gonna give you all the 5-drop really bad cards. So you know Rise from the Grave, right? 4 and a black, return a creature, it's a zombie. There's one of those in almost like every set. I'm gonna just speed round the ones that we decided to run. You can pause the video if you want, then we'll move on to the more interesting stuff. We've got Defossilize, we've got Rescue from the Underworld, we've got Unbreakable Bond, we've got Unburial Rites, we've got Valgavas Faithful, we've got Zombify, we've got Restart Sequence, and we've got Carnal Serenade. So pretty good amount of recursion, and seeing that our commander will create 4 treasures almost every time it's used, these will all cost 1 black, essentially, which is incredibly good, and especially on a budget. Like I said, if you're in like a budget league or something, this is kind of gross. Moving on to our more interesting reanimation pieces, we've got Martial's Anthem, which is 2 and 2 white, and it's an anthem. It gives a 1/1 to your whole board, but you can pay 1 and a white as many times as you want when you cast it to reanimate that many creatures. And in this deck, this is a free spell because you're going to get 4 treasures, so you can play this for free. Just crack your 4 treasures to cast it, and then all the rest of your mana goes into the multi-kicker, and you return a ton of creatures. And they're bigger. Why not? Orcus, Prince of Undeath, is actually a really unique one in this deck because it is a legendary, so it will get put into your hand, but the fact that you can pay X to a red and a black to cast it, and then the first part we really don't care about, you can return creatures with a total CMC of X from your graveyard into play. And when your commander's making 4 treasures and you're putting Orcus back into your hand, I guess your commander's making 3 treasures if you're putting Orcus back into your hand. Still, you can definitely play this guy and have it do some damage. Yeah, each other creature gets -X. I guess we're not ignoring the first part. You can just play it as a board wipe if you want. We've also got Priest of Fell Rites and Null Priest of Oblivion, which are both just creatures that like sack themselves. I guess Null Priest has a kicker, the other one sacks themselves, whatever. They're creatures that have a built-in cost that will resurrect a creature. Why not on a budget? These are really great options. We've also got Phyrexian Delver to return a creature when it ETBs, and when you have reanimation on a creature, that's extra good because you can just target this and then chain reanimation, which is really nice. And Sepulchral Primordial is not only a bomb that we can reanimate, it also reanimates a creature from everyone else's graveyard, which is absolutely disgusting in this deck. Outside of that, here's a look at the deck's land base, the deck's card draw, the deck's mana ramp, the removal as well as the deck's board interaction. And if you're interested in building this deck, let's move on to the under $50 upgrades for the list. Okay, so as far as upgrades are concerned in this deck, we've got 7 cards that I would suggest. I think Hoarding Broodlord is actually a fantastic reanimation piece that you could put in as just a bomb to reanimate. 5 and 3 black, 7/6, Convoke, flying. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a card, exile it face down. For as long as it remains exiled, you may cast it, and spells you cast from exile have Convoke. Just a really big bomb you could play. It also convokes, so you can chain it into possibly another piece of reanimation to then chain it into more big bombs that are hitting play. Again, 7/6 Convoke with flying, with 4 treasures hitting play on this. I think this creature, just as a default creature in your deck, could come out really early most games. My Shades are fallen, and that's pretty nice. Academy Manufacturer. That seems really good in here. Whenever we make a treasure, we instead make a treasure, a clue, and a food with the amount of treasures Dahada's pumping out. Even if it only does it once, that's really useful. We're getting card draw and possible life gain out of every single Dahada use. That's gonna be great. Of course, I would highly suggest Animate Dead and Reanimate. These are 2 very, very potent reanimation pieces, costing 1 and 2 respectively. Yeah, that's incredibly cheap to be reanimating. And in Dahada, the fact we're getting 4 reanimation tokens, imagine reanimating twice in 1 turn off those treasures instead of once. Very overpowered. Of course, I think Living Death and Rise from the Dark Realms are both going to be very good. Living Death acting as a board wipe that also returns everything from grave, so in your Reanimator list, very much more useful to you than anyone else at the table. And Rise from the Dark Realms, same idea, very much a game ender because you can return every creature from your graveyard. Why not? And finally, the last upgrade piece for this deck I'd recommend is Incarnation Technique. This is one that you guys actually convinced me to run. I was not sold on this card. I didn't think it was good. I put it in my Taval list. It is busted. For 5 and a black, those are Rise from the Grave stats. We can return a creature from our graveyard into play, but we can have an opponent copy this spell, and if we do, we get another copy. So, oh, and did I not mention we mill 5 cards at the beginning of it? Yeah, we mill 5 cards. So we're seeing a total of 10 cards reanimating 2 creatures, and then we just pick the Spellslinger deck at the table to be like, yeah, you do it too, buddy. Why not? As with all the decks we're going to talk about today, you can find the deck list down below. And with that, let's move on to the 4th and final powerhouse deck for a penny. Do you want the absolute poster boy of budget deck that will absolutely lay out the entire table when you play it? I figured you did. You clicked on the video. Arcades, the strategist. There you go. Have fun spending like no money on this deck and laying people out with value. Oh, what's it do? 1 green, white, blue, 3/5, flying, vigilance. When you play a creature with Defender, draw a card. Creatures you control deal damage equal to their toughness instead of their power. Yeah, you got a 2-drop wall that's a 0/6. That's a 2-drop 6/6 that draws you a card on ETB. You will lay people out. If you are looking for a budget list to bring to just lay people out for under 50, here's your holy grail, dude. Now, I could sit here for an hour straight listing to you all the specific walls I put in this deck. I'll bring up a few. It's just your choice, man. Go to Scryfall, type in Oracle Wall or Oracle Defender or, you know, anything, any Arcades list online, and just pick your favorite walls. Some of the ones that I think you might want to run, though. Axebane Guardian, a 3-drop 0/3 that will tap for mana equal to the number of creatures with Defender you control. That's probably one you're going to want to run. Overgrown Battlement doing the same thing except for green. Again, probably one you're going to want to run in the wall deck. Of course, the walls that replace themselves, like Wall of Omens or Wall of Blossoms, they draw you a card on ETB. Those are going to be great because they're drawing you 2 cards in this deck on ETB. Absolutely disgusting. Wait, what about a Cherix the Raging Isle? Do you want a 4-drop 14/14? I'm just asking for a friend. I'm just checking for a friend. Oh, it's a 17/17. How about a Wall of Denial? How about a 3-drop 8/8 Shroud flying? How about that? How about a Planeswalker that makes walls? How about Teo? You're just spitting out 3/3s with Teo. What's his little passive do? You have X-Proof? Why not? You want some synergy? You want some sick synergy in this deck? How about Bar the Doors? How about a 3-drop that gives your whole board a 0/4, but in this deck, your whole board gets +4/+4 for 3 mana at instant speed? That seems good. Not good enough for you? How about Tower Defense? 1 and a green to give your board 0/5 at instant speed. In this deck, +5/+5 at instant speed. Insane. Assault Formation? Just a second commander in the deck? You're in luck. It's also super budget. Like, the only expensive card in the budget list is like Crystal Barricade, and it's like $3, and it gives you hexproof. It's a really decent wall, and it makes you not take non-combat damage. That seems great as well. Sure. How about a 215 Pride of the Hulklade that can come out much cheaper, gives your creatures huge buffs, and makes them deal damage equal to their toughness. It's ridiculous how many strong pieces you get in here on a strict budget. This is like almost the normal list, and we're under 50. It's insane. Not to even mention your board wipes are fucking awesome, because you get to just destroy all creatures with like blank toughness or higher, and since all your creatures have 0 toughness pretty much, you just one way board wipe the whole game. I cannot list enough ways that this deck is insanely overpowered on a budget. Okay, here's a look at the deck's card draw. Here's a look at the deck's mana ramp, as well as the removal and the board interaction in the deck, and as well as the land base, of course. If you're interested in building this deck, let's move on to the under $50 upgrades for. In this list, we've got 4 upgrades for under $50. That's because the list is so incredibly powerful at how budget it is. Like I said, outside of just like throwing in better lands, I guess, there's not a lot of ways to just make an Arcades deck super expensive. But I've got a couple. Up first, we've got Wall of Stolen Identities. This is just a wall that will copy something and then tap the thing it copied down. This is like $2 or $3. It's not really that expensive. It's just one that didn't quite make the build that I really like. I do think this should be in the list. We've also got Pagan Lord of the Beach, which is nuts. You just draw a card whenever you cast a creature with toughness bigger than its power. In this deck, yeah, paired with Arcades, you're drawing a ton of cards. And you can also pay a hybrid Azorius to have one of your creatures deals combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Just another Arcades, essentially. Literally just a second Arcades. Definitely put that in. Up next, we got Zapindrail, who is 5 and 2 green for a 5/6 or 5/7. Let me check. Oh, for a 4/6 reach. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you double the power and toughness of all your creatures. AKA in this deck, you're making your 0/6 a 0/12. And with Arcades in play, that's a 12/12. Very gross. You can also pay like 2 Phyrexian green to sack 2 creatures and give it an indestructible counter, which in this deck with all the cheap walls, not hard to do at all. Mainly doubling the power and toughness in this deck. That's a lot of damage. And then finally, the most expensive card you could probably run in this deck. You've got Ramas Acor, Ancient Shield, which is 3 and a white for a legendary artifact. When you cast your second spell each turn, create a 0/3 white wall with Defender. At the beginning of combat on your turn, creatures you control with Defender gain Exalted until end of turn. So if you've got one very evasive wall or one very beefy, hard to deal with wall, like a Wall of Denial, you can now give all your other walls Exalted, bash with your huge Wall of Denial, not worry about that, now keep all your other walls open for blocking. That seems really good. Past that though, walls are extraordinarily cheap mana cost wise, so playing your second spell each turn and then getting a free wall out of it, not hard to do at all. But like I said, you don't even really need to upgrade this deck. Like these decks, the Arcades decks under $50 are just powerhouses, dude. It's actually insane how strong this deck is. So if you enjoyed this video, please let me know by leaving a like, commenting, and subscribing. You guys have been showing a ton of support on these videos. I really do appreciate it. If you want to show additional support on these videos, consider checking out the YouTube membership and the Patreon membership. It starts as low as $1, where you could submit your favorite obscure cards, as well as submit your deck list for Friday night deck review live streams. If any of that sounds interesting to you, feel free to check that out. Watch some of my other videos, and if you want to submit one of your 3 to 5 minute videos for the series where I showcase some of you, where you can maybe dip your toe in the content creation field, submit them to this email down below. Outside of that, I'm gonna get out of your guys' hair. I'll see you guys next time.